They told her the forest was safe, until the night a stranger fell bleeding into her arms, and Lyra realized the stories she trusted were lies. Because no human should survive wounds like his. And no creature with eyes like that should have been alive at all. Welcome back, my dark fantasy lovers, and if you're new here, hit subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Now, let's step into the shadows. Story begins. The forest should have been silent at this hour. No wind, no birds, no footsteps. But Lyra froze mid-stride when she heard it, the thud, followed by the sharp crack of a branch breaking under a heavy body. She lifted her lantern, casting a dim gold halo through the mist. Soft fog, moonlight slicing through trees, faint blue glow on the ground. "Hello," she called out, her voice steady but her heartbeat not. That's when she saw him. A figure collapsed at the base of an ancient ash tree, blood darkening the leaves beneath him. Lyra rushed forward, instinct first, fear later. Healing was the one thing she'd always trusted herself to do. But as she knelt, the lantern's glow revealed his face. And her breath caught. He wasn't just handsome. He was carved like a secret the night refused to give up. Dark hair matted with blood. Lips too pale. A jaw clenched in silent pain. And his skin got cold as winter stone. "Stay with me," Lyra whispered, pressing her hands over a deep wound across his ribs. "Don't you dare die tonight." His eyelids fluttered. For a moment she thought she imagined it, until they opened fully. Eyes like molten silver stared back at her. Unnatural. Hypnotic. Wrong for any human she had ever treated. "Who are you?" she breathed. His voice was low, velvet dragged over steel. "Don't touch me." Odd request for someone bleeding out. Even stranger considering the way his body. The moment Lyra's door slammed behind them, the world outside vanished. The forest, the silence, the danger, all of it was swallowed by the warm shadows of her cottage. But Kieran, he brought the night in with him. His weight slumped against her, heavier now, as though the momentary burst of strength he had used to help her through the trees had drained the last of his reserves. Lyra guided him onto the small bed tucked against the wall, her breath trembling from the effort. Her hands didn't tremble from fear. No, they trembled from something else entirely. Something she didn't have a name for. Warm candlelight flickering over his blood-streaked chest, shadows dancing across his jawline. Kieran exhaled, a slow shuddering sound that made the hairs on her arms rise. "You shouldn't have brought me here," he murmured, voice deep and rough, like someone trying to stay conscious when everything inside them screamed to surrender. Lyra ignored him and reached for her satchel of herbs and cloth. "Be quiet," she said softly. "Save your strength." He let out a low sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a growl. Something in between. "You command me easily for a human," he said. She blinked, pausing. "Is that supposed to insult me?" "No," he whispered. "It concerns me." His eyes, those molten, dangerous silver eyes, lifted to hers. The space between them thickened, the air warmer. Lyra swallowed hard and forced her gaze downward, to the deep gash along his ribs. The skin around it was torn in a strange pattern, like claws but too clean, too precise. She tore a piece of cloth and wet it with warm water. When she pressed it to his wound, his entire body tensed. A breath hissed between his teeth. "You feel pain?" she asked quietly. He lifted a brow. "Did you assume I was made of stone?" "No," she murmured. "But I didn't expect you to feel it like that." He held her gaze. Slowly. Intensely. "Your touch," he said, voice dropping lower, "is different." Her breath caught, because the way he said it wasn't casual. It was reverent. Like he was confessing a secret he had sworn never to speak. Lyra shook her head and focused on cleaning the wound. Her fingers brushed the skin near his ribs, cool, unnaturally smooth, impossibly firm. A shiver crackled under her skin like a spark jumping between them. He felt it too. She saw it in the way his jaw tightened. In the way his chest rose sharply beneath her hand. "You need stitches," she whispered. "They won't hold," he replied. "Not with what I am." "Then tell me," she said, her voice suddenly bold. "What are you?" The lantern flickered, as if the darkness wanted to answer for him. Kieran looked away, the first time he had shown anything that resembled vulnerability. "It's better if you don't know." She leaned closer, unable to stop herself from following the pull between them. The scent of him surrounded her, cool like midnight air, warm like smoldering embers. The combination shouldn't have existed. But on him it felt intoxicating. "You think hiding things will keep me safe?" she whispered. "I dragged you out of a forest full of danger. I think safety stopped being an option." Something flickered in his eyes, admiration mixed with fear. "You don't understand," he murmured. "My kind, we do not get attached." Lyra's pulse stumbled. Attached. He inhaled sharply, closing his eyes as if the word itself pained him. "There are laws," he said. "Covenants older than kingdoms. Ones that forbid bonds with humans." The word bonds lingered between them like a forbidden taste. Lyra swallowed hard, her heart suddenly beating too fast. "I'm not asking for a bond," she said, trying to deny the electricity buzzing under her skin every time she touched him. "I'm trying to keep you alive." He opened his eyes again, and the raw intensity in them nearly made her step back. "Then stop touching me like you're not tempting fate." The air left her lungs. Heat coiled low in her stomach, unexpected, overwhelming. She didn't know what part of her touch had made him say that, but she couldn't deny the truth. Something was happening between them. Something neither of them understood. Or maybe he understood too well. Lyra forced herself to continue treating his wounds, using slow, deliberate motions. Her fingertips grazed along his skin again, accidentally, but this time he inhaled sharply and his hand shot up. He caught her wrist. Not painfully. Not forcefully. But with a kind of restrained desperation. His thumb brushed her pulse, slow, warm, lingering longer than necessary. "You heal strangely fast," he murmured. "Your hands, there is something in them." Lyra's breath hitched. "I'm just a healer." "No," he whispered, shaking his head faintly. "There's more. I felt it in the forest. Your energy. Your warmth. It is not human." She froze. No one had ever said that before. But she had always known she wasn't entirely like others. Her wounds closed quicker. Her senses flared stronger. Her intuition sharper than normal. Still, to hear it from him. From someone not even human. "What are you saying?" she breathed. "That you may be far more dangerous than the creature that attacked me," he replied softly. Her heart hammered. But before she could speak, a floorboard creaked outside. Kieran's head snapped toward the door. All the softness vanished. His eyes darkened, silver swallowed by black. Lyra's blood ran cold. "Someone followed us," he whispered. The candlelight sputtered as if frightened. Kieran tightened his grip on her wrist, protective, not possessive. "Stay behind me," he murmured. Voice low. Voice lethal. Lyra barely had time to react before his body shifted, muscles tightening, senses sharpening. And in the window, just beyond the faint reflection of candlelight, a silhouette moved. Still. Watching. The silhouette lingered outside the window. Motionless, tall, carved from pure darkness. Even the candlelight seemed to lean away from it, as if refusing to touch whatever stood there. Lyra's breath froze in her lungs. Kieran moved before she could think. Silent, fluid, a predator shedding all traces of weakness. His wounds didn't matter anymore. Pain didn't matter. Only instinct. He stepped in front of her, shielding her completely with his body. The shift was subtle but absolute. The protective curve of his shoulders, the widening of his stance, the tension coiling through him like a drawn bow. His silhouette framed by flickering amber light, eyes glinting silver black like sharpened moonlight. "Kieran," Lyra whispered. "Stay behind me," he breathed, voice dropping into a velvet darkness that sent a shiver racing up her spine. The shadow outside moved. Just a tilt of the head. Just enough for Lyra to feel its attention slide straight through the walls. And settle on her. Her skin prickled. Something ancient and cold pressed against her soul. Then, bang. The candle blew out. Darkness swallowed the room. Lyra gasped, but Kieran's hand found hers instantly, pulling her against him, not roughly but urgently. And then, a voice cut through the silence. A voice that didn't come from outside. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere. "Kieran." Lyra flinched. Kieran didn't. He only exhaled once, long, resigned, irritated. "It seems," he muttered under his breath, "they found us." Before Lyra could ask who they were, the shadows in the corner of her cottage thickened, curling like smoke, swirling like ink dropped into water, then shaping themselves into three figures. Tall, dark cloaked, eyes glowing faintly like dying coals. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Lyra's fingers tightened around Kieran's, and his tightened back. But he stepped forward, putting himself between her and the intruders. "Elders," he said, voice stripped of warmth. The tallest of the three lifted his chin, disapproval etched into every inch of his ancient face. "You bleed in the presence of a human," he said. The contempt wasn't shouted. It was whispered. Soft, deadly. Another elder sniffed the air. She touched you. His upper lip curled. There is scent on you that should not be. Heat flooded Lyra's cheeks. Not from shame, but from the way Kieran's jaw clenched at the comment. A possessive flicker, quick but unmistakable, passed through his expression. The third elder stepped forward, voice icy and deliberate. You know the covenant. No attachments. No bonds. No entanglement of heart or flesh. His gaze slid to Lyra, cold enough to burn. And yet here you are. Compromised. Lyra swallowed hard. The air pressed against her chest like invisible hands. Kieran didn't flinch. She saved my life. And now, the elder replied, she endangers it. A low growl vibrated in Kieran's throat. Lyra felt it more than she heard it. She is no threat, he said softly. One touch from a human, the elder hissed, and centuries of discipline unravel. You know what emotional attachment does to our kind. Lyra's heart stuttered. Kieran is attached? Already? Impossible. Ridiculous. And yet, something in her chest warmed in response. Something treacherous. The tallest elder cut through the air with his cane. You will return with us. Now. Kieran's shoulders tightened. Not while the creature that attacked me is still hunting her. She is irrelevant, the elder replied sharply. Kieran took a step forward. A dangerous one. One that made all three elders stiffen. Say that again, he whispered. Lyra felt the shift. The invisible crackle in the air. The pull between them amplifying. Twisting, tightening as if some unseen thread connected them. The elder's eyes narrowed. You are already weakening. His gaze sharpened. She is the reason. Lyra stepped forward despite the fear clawing at her throat. Kieran is wounded because he saved me, she said, voice trembling but firm. I'm not a weakness. The elder turned toward her. And in that instant, the room darkened further, like the shadows themselves bowed to his presence. Child, he said, tone dripping with ancient pity. You have no idea what you are. Lyra frowned. What I am. I'm human. The elder's expression sharpened. Show her. Kieran stiffened. No. Show her. A cold wind whipped through the cottage. Windows rattling. Floorboards groaning. Candles relighting on their own with pale, ghostly flames. And Lyra felt it. A burn. A sudden, searing heat blooming along her forearm. She gasped and looked down. Her skin was glowing. A thin, swirling pattern formed beneath the surface. A mark blooming like molten silver ink. Curling from her wrist to the inside of her elbow. Soft at first, then brighter. Pulsing. Reacting. Reacting to him. The closer Kieran stood, the brighter it burned. Lyra staggered back in shock. What is this? Kieran swore under his breath. It wasn't supposed to manifest yet. The tallest elder leaned forward. The prophecy unfolds, he murmured. The bond begins. Bond? Lyra whispered, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. The elder's eyes gleamed. The ancient mark of the heart singed, he said. A sign that your soul recognizes his. Lyra couldn't breathe. Kieran turned toward her, expression torn. Pain, fear, longing, something deeper lurking beneath. Kieran, she whispered, what does it mean? The elder answered before he could. It means child. You were never meant to be ordinary. He stepped closer, cloak whispering across the wooden floor. And it means that if your connection deepens, you will bring ruin to us all. Lyra's pulse hammered. The mark burned hotter. Kieran reached for her. Hesitant, conflicted, desperate. But the elders stepped between them. No touch, one hissed. Not again. Lyra's skin blazed where Kieran's fingers had brushed hers earlier. A phantom warmth, searing, intimate, undeniable. Something inside her knew, with terrifying certainty, that her life would never return to what it was. Because the prophecy wasn't just about him. It was about her. And someone, something, was already watching from the shadows to make sure it came true. The red eyes outside the window didn't blink. They didn't shift. They didn't move. They only stared, unbroken, predatory, claiming her with a stillness that made the air in Lyra's lungs turn cold. And yet, she couldn't pull away from the warmth pressed against her back. Kieran's arm curved around her waist in one swift, protective motion. Not gentle, not soft, but necessary, instinctive. His breath brushed her hair, ragged, barely controlled. Don't look away from me, he murmured. But Lyra's gaze remained locked on the glowing crimson eyes. Kieran, what is that? His answer came through clenched teeth. Not something I want near you. The elders hissed spells under their breath, shadows twisting around their hands. But whatever stood outside didn't retreat. It only leaned closer as if smelling Lyra through the wall. The mark on her arm burned hotter. The full moon rose higher above the cottage roof, brightening the room until the silver on her skin shimmered like liquid starlight. One elder cursed under his breath. It's reacting to her fear. Another snapped, no. It's reacting to him. And Kieran, he felt it too. His grip tightened around Lyra's waist, an unconscious pull, drawing her flush against the hard line of his body. A shield. A barrier. A warning. His heart wasn't beating, vampire hearts rarely did, but something in his chest throbbed with a low, dangerous ache. The creature outside moved. Wind slammed against the side of the cottage. Wood groaned. Glass rattled. Something sharp scraped across the window, dragging like a claw. Lyra gasped. Kieran spun her around and pinned her against his chest, forcing her head into the curve of his shoulder as if shielding her from a horror she wasn't meant to see. Don't, he growled, not at her but at whatever lurked outside. The sound of his voice shifted, low, ancient, filled with a power she had never heard from him before. The elders stepped forward, forming a small half-circle around the door. Prince, one whispered sharply, you must distance yourself. Your bond amplifies the creature's hunger. But Kieran didn't move. He didn't release her. He didn't even pretend to listen. His mouth came close, too close, to her ear. This is going to get violent, he murmured, his breath warm enough to make her knees weaken. You stay behind me. No matter what you see. No matter what you hear. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt on instinct. What if it breaks in? She whispered. His jaw brushed her temple. It won't. How do you know? Pause. A dangerous, intimate pause. Because I won't let it touch you. Before she could absorb the weight of those words, the window shattered. Glass flew inward in a glittering rain. The candle flames went dead. The wind howled through the room like a wounded beast. Lyra screamed, but she never hit the ground. Kieran's arms scooped her up, his body twisting with impossible speed as he pulled her toward the door. The elders shouted incantations. The creature lunged. The shadows erupted. And the moon, full, bright, merciless, bathed everything in silver. In the blur of panic, Lyra grabbed Kieran's collar. Her fear wasn't gentle, it was desperate, shaking, grounding itself in him. Kieran. He stopped. He wasn't supposed to stop. Not then. Not with the creature smashing through her home. Not with the elders shouting warnings. But the sound of her voice, her fear, anchored something inside him. He lowered her to her feet, his hands staying on her hips, holding her steady even though her legs trembled. Their faces were inches apart. Moonlight spilled over them both. And the mark on her arm exploded in light, brilliant, violent, alive. Kieran inhaled sharply as the glow reflected in his eyes. Lyra. Her name left him like a prayer dragged across broken glass. The house shook behind them, wood splintering, a snarl ripping through the night, but neither moved. The world narrowed. Her breath against his lips. His hands gripping her waist like she was the only thing anchoring him to sanity. Her pulse racing against his unnatural stillness. The mark flaring hotter, brighter, almost begging. And the creature lunged again. Lyra stumbled backward. Kieran caught her. Their bodies collided. Something inside her snapped. Not fear. Not magic. Something older. Her hand slid up his chest, fisting in his torn shirt. His breath escaped in a sharp, quiet shudder. Kieran, please. She didn't finish the sentence. Because he moved first. His mouth met hers beneath the full moon. Not soft. Not hesitant. Not the kiss of a prince bound by rules. It was the kiss of someone who had been fighting the universe itself. And finally lost to the gravity between them. The heat of it poured into her, an overwhelming rush of sensation that made her spine arch and her knees bend. His lips were cold at first, vampire cold, then warming, then burning as the bond ignited. The mark on her arm surged with light, wrapping up her shoulder like living fire. Her magic awakened, wild, untrained, pulsing outward in a shock of power. Light exploded around them. The elders gasped. The creature shrieked, thrown backward by an invisible force as the air rippled from the impact of her awakened power. Kieran broke the kiss with a gasp, pressing his forehead to hers as if he couldn't stand to be farther than a breath away. His voice was hoarse. You awakened it. Lyra shook, breathless, trembling in his hands. I did what? He touched her cheek, dangerously tender. The power you shouldn't have yet. The power that only ignites when... His throat tightened. When the bond recognizes the heart's choice. She stared at him, lips parted, chest rising and falling rapidly. "I didn't choose anything," she whispered. His thumb traced her jaw, slow, deliberate, devastating. "Your soul did." Behind them, the creature roared outside the shattered cottage. The earth trembled. The elders began chanting. Kieran pulled Lyra behind him, his body a shield once more. But something had changed now. Their connection wasn't unspoken anymore. It had been sealed under the full moon, with a kiss that awakened destiny, and danger, and desire. The elders knew it. The creature knew it. Kieran knew it. And Lyra, aching, glowing, breathless, knew she could never go back to who she was before tonight. As if the thing watching them outside, the presence Lyra had felt earlier, slipped away now that the elders had claimed the room. Its departure wasn't loud or dramatic. It was worse. Quiet. Intentional. The kind of silence predators left behind when they weren't done, just waiting for the next moment you exhaled too deeply. Lyra felt the chill of it leave her skin, but the heat remained. The mark on her arm still pulsed softly, glowing faint silver beneath the surface, like liquid moonlight had been poured into her veins. She clutched her forearm instinctively, trying to shield it from the elder's gaze, from Kieran's gaze, from her own spiraling panic. But the more she covered it, the more aware she became of him. Kieran, standing across the room, held back by the elders like a storm trapped behind thin glass. He wasn't touching her, not anymore, but her body still felt the echo of his fingertips. A memory of warmth. A phantom imprint. As if his touch had left an afterglow. The elders observed her quietly, too quietly. Their eyes glimmered with something ancient, suspicious, calculating. Then without warning the tallest elder turned. "Prince Kieran," he said, voice stiff as cold iron, "we must leave." His command snapped through the room like a whip. Kieran's breath left him in one sharp exhale. "No," he said. It was barely more than a whisper, but the word held weight. Defiance, danger, desire, all braided together. Lyra's heart thudded. The elder's tone cooled further. "She is awakening. Every second you remain near her accelerates the mark." His gaze flicked to Lyra with thinly veiled disdain. "And your restraint hangs by a thread." Lyra's pulse stumbled. Restraint? What part of him was slipping? Kieran took a single step back, not toward the elders but toward her. Even that small movement made the room feel smaller, warmer, charged with something that stole her breath. "Kieran," she whispered. His eyes snapped to hers. And everything inside her tightened. There was longing there, yes, but also fear, and hunger, and a kind of protective ferocity that felt forbidden. The kind of emotion the elders had warned him against, the kind that threatened centuries of rigid laws. "Lyra," he said, voice low, rough around the edges, "I'm not leaving you here alone." The elders hissed, the candles flickering violently in response. One stepped forward, cloak billowing like smoke. "You forget yourself." Kieran's jaw clenched hard. "I forget nothing." His gaze never left Lyra. "I remember every moment." Heat bloomed in her chest. Every moment? The way she had held his face when he staggered into her cottage. The way his breath had ghosted across her skin. The way his fingers had curled around her hand like he had known her far longer than a single night. The elders clearly saw the tension building, the invisible thread tightening between them like a heartbeat. And they intervened. "Prince," the second elder said sharply, "your attachment is a liability." The third elder's voice darkened. "The prophecy speaks of a human healer whose bond with the royal bloodline will either restore the Night Kingdom, or destroy it." Lyra froze. "Destroy?" she echoed. The tallest elder ignored her completely. "Our laws forbid this connection for a reason. The last time a prince allowed a human to pull at his emotions." "Enough," Kieran snapped, and the room trembled. The shadows recoiled again. Even the flames bent away. Lyra swallowed. His power, barely restrained, vibrated through the floor like distant thunder. "Kieran," she whispered gently, don't fight them because of me." His expression broke for a moment, just one moment, like the words hit deeper than she intended. He looked at her as if she had said something terribly beautiful and terribly dangerous at the same time. Then he breathed, "There is no because of you." Pause. "A bond doesn't choose to exist." His voice softened, thickened. "It simply does." Her knees weakened. The elders stepped between them again, blocking the space, blocking the heat, blocking the moment. "You will return to the citadel?" the elder demanded. "If you resist, we will summon the full council." Kieran's entire body went still. Lyra recognized the kind of stillness that came just before a storm broke the world open. The air thinned, heavy with unspoken things. What? Fear. Duty. Desire. Danger. But before any of it erupted, the tallest elder turned to Lyra. "Child," he said, "you must understand something." His eyes were obsidian, old, unreadable. "You are no longer safe." The way he said it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a verdict. Kieran reacted instantly. "She is safest with me. She is the very reason you are compromised," the elder snapped. "And the rogue clans have scented the mark. They will come for her. Not to protect the prophecy." His gaze sharpened, voice sinking lower. "But to claim it." Lyra's stomach dropped. The shadow outside the window. The thing watching. The presence waiting for the elders to leave. It hadn't been random. Kieran turned toward her fully now, expression carved with worry and something deeper, something warmer. This time the elders didn't stop him. Not quickly enough. He crossed the small space between them in 2 steps, his hand hovering inches from her arm. Not touching, but close enough that the mark began to shimmer again beneath her skin, pulsing brighter, hotter. Lyra sucked in a breath. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Does it hurt?" "No," she breathed. "It reacts." His eyes flicked to her glowing skin, then back to her face. "Reacting to what?" she whispered. Kieran hesitated. "Then, you." Her heart nearly stopped. The elder's silence only amplified the moment. Kieran's fingers hovered so close she could feel the heat from his skin. Her pulse jumped. The mark flared. His breath hitched softly. Lyra. Her name was almost a confession. Almost a surrender. But then, a hum. Oh, dark. Vibrating through the walls. The shadow from outside returned. And this time, it wasn't hiding. The elders whipped around. Kieran grabbed Lyra's wrist, finally touching her, and the mark exploded in light. Silver, molten, alive. The elders shouted something in a dead language. But Lyra didn't hear it. All she felt was Kieran pulling her against him, his body a shield, his heat sinking into her like an instinct she didn't know she had. And outside the window, 2 red eyes opened. Watching her. Claiming her. The prophecy had begun. And forbidden proximity was no longer a temptation. It was a threat. The world didn't snap back right away. For a long, breathless moment after their first kiss, Lyra remained pressed against Kieran's chest, her pulse drumming against his palm where he still held her waist. His forehead rested gently against hers, breaths uneven, as though the kiss had stolen the air from both of them. His voice was low, ragged. "Lyra, you have no idea what you do to me." Warmth shimmered through her, not a simple flutter but something molten, ancient, like a sleeping star swelling inside her ribs. The bond. The whisper of destiny she wasn't ready to name yet. But when she finally pulled back to steady herself, the world itself seemed different. Brighter, sharper, as if every shadow was watching them. "Is it supposed to feel like this?" she whispered, barely trusting her voice. Kieran brushed a thumb across her lower lip, still slightly swollen from the kiss, tender, reverent, like he was memorizing the sensation. "The bond amplifies everything," he murmured. "Desire, fear, instinct. It makes every breath heavier. Every touch louder." His eyes darkened. "And with you it's almost uncontrollable." Her heart skipped. Heat licked up her throat. "Kieran." He swallowed hard as though fighting something inside himself. "But I won't let it take me too far. Not unless you want." A twig snapped in the woods. Instantly, Kieran was a different creature. Alpha posture, senses flaring, eyes glowing faint gold. Lyra felt the shift like a gust of cold wind. "What is it?" she asked, clutching his arm. Someone was watching. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "They've been following us since dusk." Before she could process the fear tugging at her spine, Kieran guided her behind him, protective and controlled even while the tension rolling off him felt like barely caged lightning. "Stay close." But Lyra couldn't help glancing back at the trees. Something had shifted. The forest felt wrong. Heavy. A pressure she couldn't name pressed on the back of her mind, something that awakened a strange echo inside her chest. That's when it began. A faint burning beneath her skin, soft at first, then brighter, like her blood recognized something in the air. "Kieran," she whispered, "I feel." He turned sharply. "What do you feel?" "A pull. Like something's calling me." His jaw clenched, fear flickered in his eyes, a rare sight. "Describe it." Before she could speak, another image flashed through her mind, unfamiliar stone halls, ancient carvings, a crest she didn't recognize, a crescent embedded in a serpent's fanged jaw. Kieran froze. "What did you just see?" She told him. And when she was done he stepped back, expression torn between shock and disbelief. Lyra, that crest belongs to the House of Vespera. She blinked. Who are they? Kieran exhaled, voice thick with stunned caution. Your family's bloodline. Lyra felt the earth fall away under her feet. My family? But we're human. No, Kieran shook his head slowly. Not fully. The revelation slammed into her harder than the bond's wildfire. He continued, voice low and hesitant, as though speaking the truth would ignite something irreversible. The House of Vespera was the keeper of the prophecy. They were the bridge between vampire royalty and the mortal world. Guardians of the blood eclipse. His gaze locked onto hers. And the prophecy spoke of a daughter, born under the twin moons, destined to either unite our worlds or destroy them. The air stirred, cold and humming. Lyra, Kieran whispered, that daughter might be you. Her knees weakened. She stumbled and Kieran caught her instantly, his arms strong and grounding around her waist. I can't be. You feel the visions, he said softly. Your blood reacts to old magic. And the way the bond ignites with you, Lyra, it makes sense. She looked up at him, breath trembling. What does this mean for us? Kieran's expression darkened with conflict. It means my love for you, he hesitated, voice breaking at the edge. Could start a war between our people. Her breath caught. Love. He closed his eyes, his jaw tightened, then he pressed her hand over his racing heart. This beats like madness when you're near. If that isn't love, then I don't know what it is. Her chest tightened painfully. Kieran. But before either of them could give in to the pull they were drowning in, the scent of smoke hit the air. Kieran snapped his head to the side. No. A raven, black, watching, perched on a nearby branch. Its eyes were unsettlingly intelligent. Kieran swore. Rogues? The raven cawed sharply and shot into the sky. Lyra felt panic twist in her gut. What does that mean? They found someone close to you, he said grimly. They want to lure you out. Her heart punched against her ribs. Who? Your aunt, he said quietly. They took her. Lyra gasped, stumbling backward. No, she had nothing to do with this. They want you, he said darkly. Your blood. Your lineage. Tears shimmered in her eyes. Kieran, we have to save her. He grabbed her shoulders, holding her still, eyes burning with conflict. I can't. His voice cracked. If I cross into the rogue territory, I break the ancient covenant. The council will come for me. They'll strip my alpha title, or my life. Lyra's pulse crashed like a storm. So you're choosing them over me? His eyes widened, hurt carved across his face. No. I'm choosing your future. If I'm killed, you'll be unprotected. The prophecy will fall into the wrong hands. I'm trying to save you. She shook her head, tears slipping free. I don't care about prophecy. My aunt is my family. I won't let them hurt her. Kieran cupped her cheek with trembling fingers. Lyra, if you step into rogue territory, they'll take you. They've already planned for it. Her voice came out splintered but fierce. I'm still going. He swallowed, torn open. I can't let you. You don't own me. His breath stuttered, wounded. Lyra, please. But she stepped away. And that small distance between them felt like a universe tearing in half. He watched her turn toward the forest path, watched her walk toward danger, and something in him snapped, raw and violent. Lyra. She didn't stop. And Kieran, Alpha King, bound by oath, chained by honor, felt the bond burn like fire under his skin. He knew what he was about to do would change everything. He ran after her. Lyra turned just as he caught her wrist and pulled her back into his arms, breath shaking with the force of his decision. I won't lose you, he whispered against her hair. If the covenant breaks, it breaks. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Kieran, you'd risk everything? He pressed his forehead to hers, voice a soft, agonized vow. For you? I'd risk the wrath of the gods themselves. And then, a howl ripped across the night. The ground trembled. A dark figure emerged from the trees, clutching a torn piece of cloth Lyra instantly recognized. Her aunt's. Kieran growled, eyes blazing wild gold. It's a trap, he whispered. But I'm walking into it. Kieran steps into rogue territory, breaking the sacred covenant, because losing Lyra is the one fate he refuses to accept. The forest was alive with shadow and whispers. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of a branch underfoot, was a drumbeat against Lyra's chest. The full moon hung low, bathing the night in silver and painting Kieran's figure in stark, impossible contrast. He moved with fluid grace, limbs coiled, senses tuned. But this was more than speed, it was controlled fury, a tempest contained only by his iron will. Lyra ran beside him, heart hammering, not just from exertion but from the closeness, the weight of him pressed so near she could feel the heat radiating off his body. Every step was a brush of his strength against her, every movement a whisper of power she couldn't name, a pull in her chest that echoed the mark blazing across her skin. "I shouldn't have come," she gasped, breath hot and trembling. Kieran's hand shot out, catching her wrist, not tightly, just enough to anchor her. "Don't say that," he growled, voice low and intoxicating. "Not now. Not ever." The brush of his thumb against her pulse point sent fire blooming up her arm, igniting the mark in a way that made her knees weak. Lyra swallowed hard, looking up at him. He looked like he always did, dangerous, commanding, unbearably alive. And somehow, impossibly, he looked vulnerable too. Their proximity pulsed like electricity. And then it hit her, another revelation. Not the mark. Not the bond. Something older. Deeper. "You," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're not just vampire, not just bloodline." Kieran's gaze locked onto hers, questioning, warning. "Tell me." Lyra's chest heaved. I'm not fully human. Something in my blood, it's ancient, cursed." He stopped, eyes narrowing but not in anger. Recognition. Desire. "A hybrid," he said softly, almost reverently. "You're the bridge, the key to changing everything." Her pulse raced, but not only from fear. Every word he spoke brushed her mind with the weight of possibility. Power. Love. Danger. Desire. All tangled in a coil she couldn't unravel. Kieran lowered his head slightly, lips brushing her temple, voice husky. "You're extraordinary, more than you know. And every breath near you proves it." The mark flared brighter beneath her skin. She gasped. Heat, need, electricity, it wasn't just him anymore. It was them. The bond reacting, alive, responding. But before they could linger in the charged space between them, the night shifted. A howl. Close. Too close. Lyra's aunt, she realized, was still in danger. Kieran's eyes snapped gold. He turned sharply toward the source, the shadows peeling apart as he advanced. Lyra ran alongside him, but this time their movement was different. The proximity, the heat between them, was undeniable. His arm brushed hers as he spun her behind him to shield her from sudden branches or traps, and each accidental touch made the world tilt on its axis. "I can't lose you, Lyra," he muttered, voice dropping so low she felt it in her bones. "You won't," she breathed back, heat creeping into her throat. "But we can't ignore this," she whispered, hand brushing over the curve of his forearm in a movement that felt accidental but spoke volumes. He didn't pull away. Didn't flinch. Instead, his lips brushed her temple in a ghost of a kiss, gentle, possessive, almost painful in its restraint. Her skin blazed. The mark pulsed again, reacting not just to him but to the closeness, the intimacy, the touch they both craved but dared not name. And then the forest opened, revealing the rogue vampires. Figures dressed in shadows, eyes glinting with malice, surrounding Lyra's aunt, who clutched her torn dress in fear. Kieran growled, a sound that rolled through the trees, deep and commanding, vibrating through her chest like a drum. Without hesitation he pushed past protocol, past the covenant, past every law his elders had drilled into him. He charged. Lyra ran at his side, hands brushing against his chest with every leap, every spin, each touch sending fire lacing through her veins. Every breath they shared was a tether, intoxicating, unrelenting, raw. The battle was brief, savage but elegant. Kieran moved like liquid shadow, every motion a blur of impossible strength, and yet he never let go of her. He protected her with a possessiveness that sent shivers crawling down her spine. When the rogue vampires fell back, retreating into the forest, Kieran finally allowed himself to exhale, and in that moment he turned fully to her. "Are you hurt?" His voice trembled just slightly, human in its raw concern. "No," she whispered, voice catching. "Yes," she admitted in a breathless afterthought, meaning her heart, her soul, the racing fire the bond had set off. He cupped her face gently, eyes burning with gold fire, gaze heavy with promise and restraint. "You don't know what you do to me," he murmured, teeth grazing her earlobe in a movement that was intimate, private, teasing without crossing the forbidden line. Her body tingled in ways she didn't understand. Part fear, part want, part something deeper, rawer, something that made her ache to lean into him, but also terrified to see how far they could go. Then came the first whisper of her own power, an awareness of her hybrid blood pulsing beneath the skin, reacting not just to him but to the danger, to the bond, to the magnetic, intoxicating closeness they shared. Kieran's forehead pressed against hers, breath mingling with hers in the moonlight. "We'll survive this," he said. "And then, we'll see how far this bond can take us." Lyra nodded, entranced, heat blooming across her skin, the mark pulsing like a heartbeat. But even as they stood there, together, victorious yet trembling, far above in the darkened sky, unseen eyes followed their every movement. The elders were watching. The council would know. And the rogue vampires, they were far from finished. The danger was no longer just outside. It was woven into the very pulse of their bodies, the heat of their shared breath, the pull of forbidden desire that neither the prophecy nor the covenant could contain. And in that moment Lyra understood. She was no longer just a girl caught in a story. She was the story. And it burned hotter than anything she had ever imagined. The moon hung heavy and oppressive, a silver witness over the shattered courtyard of the royal vampire keep. Kieran's chest rose and fell in shallow, controlled breaths. Every movement he made radiated power and restraint, each motion measured, but the tension coiled around him like a living thing. He didn't need to look to know she was behind him. Lyra's presence was a tether, a warmth that anchored him in the storm of his own violent impulses. The elders emerged from the shadows, every step echoing with authority. Their eyes glimmered with ancient fury, lips pressed thin with disapproval. "Prince Kieran," the tallest elder hissed, "you dare to defy the covenant before the council? With a human?" Lyra's pulse hammered in her throat, the mark on her arm pulsing in tandem with her heartbeat. Every brush of her skin against Kieran's radiated warmth, intimate and undeniable. She swallowed, trying to steady herself, feeling the pull of something deeper than fear, something almost impossible to name. "I did not come here to debate," Kieran said, jaw tight. His hand found hers, intertwining their fingers, his grip firm, protective. "I came to protect what matters. And she matters." The words left no room for negotiation, no room for compromise. Heat pooled low in her belly at the possessive edge, the tone in his voice that made her ache in ways she had never felt before. "You will release her," the elders snapped, stepping closer, the shadows of their robes sweeping across the ground like living ink. "Or face the wrath of your kind." Kieran's eyes flared, gold and black colliding like molten metal. "I will not," he said, voice low, vibrating with barely contained fire. "Not now. Not ever. She is not yours to command. She is mine to protect." The tension was electric. Every breath, every movement, every touch seemed magnified. Lyra's body hummed with awareness, of him, of the mark, of the raw, unspoken desire that crackled between them like lightning over the cliffs of the kingdom. The elders hissed in unison, and a wave of invisible force pressed against them both. Lyra felt the air compress her lungs, but she didn't let go of Kieran. Her hand burned in his, the bond flaring violently in response to his defiance and her own rising power. One elder lunged, attempting to separate them. Lyra reacted instinctively. She raised her hand, palm glowing silver with raw energy that surged from the bond and her hybrid bloodline. A pulse of light blasted outward, knocking the elder back, and the courtyard erupted into chaos. Shadows twisted, weapons clashed, and through it all, Kieran moved like a storm incarnate, every step synchronized with hers, protecting and shielding, every brush of his arm against her igniting a fire she could not contain. And then he was struck. A rogue vampire, hidden amidst the chaos, lunged at him, fangs glinting in the moonlight. Without thinking, Lyra threw herself into the path of the attack. The mark flared white-hot along her arm. A surge of power rippled through her body, and she felt every cell ignite with energy she had never experienced before. The blow that would have destroyed Kieran slammed into her shoulder, knocking the wind from her lungs. Kieran screamed her name, eyes wild with panic and rage, and in that instant the bond between them roared like a living thing. He grabbed her, his arms strong and unwavering, pressing her against him. The heat from his body mingled with the pulsing light of her mark, and in that moment, it wasn't just protection, it was intimacy, raw and overwhelming. "Lyra," he growled, voice breaking with emotion. "Don't leave me. Not like this. Not ever." She coughed, gasping for air, but her eyes never left his. I won't," she whispered, voice trembling. Her chest pressed against his as her body shivered, not just from pain, but from the overwhelming proximity, the closeness that made every nerve in her body sing. The bond surged, reacting to the near loss, to the danger, to the unspoken, undeniable fire between them. The mark along her arm blazed, wrapping around her shoulder like a living, silvery embrace, pulsing in tandem with the rhythm of her heart and Kieran's own invisible pulse. The elders froze, shock and fear etched across their ancient faces. They had never witnessed such a fusion of human and vampire power, such raw, uncontrollable energy tethered to the Alpha Prince himself. Kieran pressed his forehead to hers, breathing heavy, voice soft but full of fire. "Do you understand, Lyra? The world will never allow us to exist like this, yet here we are. Together. Alive. Unbroken." Her lips trembled into a small, breathless smile. "I do," she whispered, hand pressed against his chest. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." He kissed her, not soft, not gentle, but urgent and intimate, lips pressing against hers in a slow, scorching motion that made the world shrink to nothing but their shared heartbeat. The elders looked on, powerless, as the universe seemed to bend around the bond they had ignited. But even as the kiss burned and their hearts roared in tandem, danger was far from over. Rogue vampires regrouped, shadows shifting at the edges of the courtyard, and the council was far from appeased. Kieran's jaw tightened. "I don't care anymore," he muttered against her hair. "If they want to challenge us, let them. Nothing will take you from me." Lyra shivered, caught between fear and the intoxicating closeness of him. "Then, we fight," she whispered, truly knowing that their bond, shattered laws and all, was stronger than anything in existence. The night stretched before them, alive with danger, magic and fire. But they were together. And nothing could break what they had now. The first light of dawn bled across the horizon, silver and gold threading through the shattered clouds. The kingdom lay quiet, almost reverent, as if holding its breath after the night's chaos. Kieran's arms held Lyra against his chest, her head resting just beneath his jaw. Every rise and fall of her breathing was a heartbeat he could feel through the bond, the connection between them flaring like molten energy beneath their skin. The mark on her arm glowed brighter than ever, now pulsing with a rhythm in perfect harmony with Kieran's heartbeat. It was alive, shimmering like liquid silver fire, and it spoke of something impossible: hope, change, liberation. "You're incredible," he murmured, voice thick with awe and desire. Lyra lifted her head just slightly, her lips brushing against the hollow of his throat. Her pulse raced, heat climbing like wildfire as the proximity of him, alive and protective and impossibly near, made every nerve in her body tingle. "I never imagined," she whispered, voice trembling. "I could do this. I could." "Lift the curse," Kieran finished for her, his lips pressing a light, possessive kiss to her temple. "Yes," she said, almost in disbelief. I can set your people free. Allow love to be free." Kieran's hand traveled slowly along the curve of her waist, fingers brushing over the fabric of her tunic with an intimacy that made her shiver, not from touch alone, but from the unspoken trust, the need, the longing that crackled between them. "They will resist," he murmured, voice low, dangerous. "The elders, the council, they will never accept this. They've lived for centuries in chains of their own making." Lyra lifted her hand, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead, tracing along the line of his jaw. "Then we will show them what freedom feels like," she said, voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fierce determination. Her words were soft, but the fire behind them could ignite kingdoms. The courtyard around them began to stir. Vampires, rogue and loyal alike, peered from the shadows, eyes wide with shock, fear and curiosity. The elders emerged last, robes heavy with centuries of tradition, faces carved with disapproval and dread. Kieran stepped forward, arms still around Lyra's waist, pulling her subtly against him. The bond between them pulsed visibly now, silver light shimmering like liquid metal across her skin. He raised his head high, golden eyes blazing in the rising sun. "She is my equal," he declared, voice carrying across the courtyard. "She is the daughter of prophecy, the hybrid of human and ancient blood, the one who can break the curse that has bound our kind for centuries. And she stands with me." Gasps rippled through the gathered vampires. The elders' faces tightened, jaws clenching, but Kieran didn't falter. Not once. Lyra's hand rested lightly over his chest, feeling the thrum of his heartbeat under her palm. Every movement, every subtle touch, was charged, intimate, euphemistic, almost electric in its restraint. She could feel the pull of him everywhere, in the warmth of his skin, the proximity of his body, the steady pressure of his arm against her waist. "And what about the covenant?" one elder demanded, voice cutting through the dawning light like glass. Kieran's lips curved in a hard, beautiful smirk. "The covenant was broken the moment I realized some laws are meant to protect cruelty, not love. We will write a new one starting today." A hush fell over the courtyard. Lyra's mark pulsed violently, flaring silver light that shimmered over her arm, shoulder, and chest. She felt the power of generations surge through her, her hybrid bloodline awakening fully, every cell alive with the possibility of change. She looked up at Kieran, heat pooling low in her belly, and whispered almost shyly, We really can change everything." He bent, lips brushing her temple first, then the side of her neck in a long, slow motion, the kind of touch that was intimate without crossing forbidden lines. A kiss that promised, a whisper of desire held in control. Lyra shivered, chest pressing into his, heat pooling through the bond like a wildfire restrained only by shared restraint and trust. "Yes," he breathed against her ear. "And the world will know. But it won't be easy. Darkness is always waiting." Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of the truth, the pulse of destiny, the flame of love intertwined with danger. A soft breeze carried a distant howl, a reminder that rogue vampires still roamed, that enemies still plotted, that the council would never accept this change without a fight. Kieran lifted her chin gently with his fingers, meeting her gaze. "No matter what comes, we face it together." Her lips curved into a small, resolute smile. Together. They stood there, the sun rising over the kingdom, the mark pulsing, the bond blazing, their bodies close, hearts entwined in a rhythm that defied tradition, laws, and centuries of expectation. And even as the elders ground their teeth in fury, and the rogue vampires melted into the shadows, the world itself seemed to shift around them. Because when prophecy, love, and courage collide, even the darkest night cannot hold back a new dawn. As Lyra and Kieran finally stepped fully into the light, hand in hand, a shadow flickered at the edge of the forest. A whisper carried on the wind, chilling and ancient. "They think the dawn is theirs, but the night has more to claim." The bond pulsed. The mark flared. The future hung in fragile, blazing balance.